is working as Assistant Professor of Sanskrit at KJ Somaya Bharatiya Sanskriti Peetham, Soumya Vidyavihar, Mumbai. He teaches various topics related to Sanskrit language, systems of Indian philosophy, yoga shastras to various courses on graduate and postgraduate levels. He runs autonomous courses on Sankhya and yoga systems as well. He has received 6 gold medals and 1 silver medal from the Chancellor of BHU and Maharaja of J&K, Padma Vibhushan Dr. Karna Singh, in the presence of Honorable President Pratibha Patil, for standing first in the Department of Sanskrit as well as Faculty of Arts. Sir, I request you to please speak.
Today, I am going to speak on the topic correlation of Indian philosophical systems and scope of research, especially in yoga philosophy. As we all know that generally in public, yoga is very popular only as physical exercise, but we all know that it is not the reality. So asana is only one part of yoga, but apart from that, it has very strong background of darshan or philosophy. And as we know that yoga is not only one darshan, but there are 6 astic darshanas and 6 nastic darshanas. I am going to discuss something about what is the relationship of Yoga Darshan and the other darshanas, because when we try to understand yoga philosophy, it cannot be understood only on the level of yoga, but we have to understand other perspectives also. So as we know that there are two branches in Indian darshanas, Astik and Nastik. So Nyaya, Vaisheshik, Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa and Vedanta, these are the Astik darshanas, and Charvak, Jain, and in Bauddha Darshan we have 4 sects: Madhyamik, Yogachar, Sautrantik and Vaibhashik. So we have 6 Astik Darshanas and 6 Nastik Darshanas. So as we know that Astik and Nastik, popularly we understand as Astik means those who believe in God, or those who not believe in God are Nastik, but in philosophy we have different perspective. Astik means the systems which accept validity of Veda, and Nastik are the systems which do not accept validity of Veda. So that we are aware of. Now the question is that if 6 systems are accepting validity of Veda, Nyaya, Vaisheshik, Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa and Vedanta, if all of them consider Vedas as their basic text or their source book, then why these 6 systems are different? Why they are not only one? If they all accept the validity of Veda only, then why there are different approaches, why there are different opinions in them? So according whatever I understand about all these systems, I have now there is one picture, and I have tried to understand what is the specialization of every darshan. Now they are accepting validity of Veda, but they are emphasizing on the special topic, and therefore they are different. So their approach is different, their perspective is different. Now whenever we understand any branch of knowledge, that can be philosophy, that can be science, that can be physics, chemistry, or any branch of knowledge, all the branches of knowledge are studying about the relationship of human being and the world. Only 2 things are important: either that science discusses about the particular thing in the world, or its connection with the self. So if we try to understand the approach of all these Astik darshanas, then we can understand in this way. So there is human being and my connection with the world. Now if we understand Vaisheshik darshan, now Vaisheshik darshan is more interested in understanding the world aspect, not the self aspect. So now there are 7 categories: Dravya, Guna, Karma, Samanya, Vishesh, Samavaya, Abhav. So Sapta Padartha are very popular in Vaisheshik darshan. So they are more interested in understanding the physical or the entities which are there in the world. So the approach of Vaisheshik darshan is more extrovert. They are more interested in understanding the realities or the objects which are in the world. They also talk about self. There is discussion about Atma in Vaisheshik darshan, but even Atma is also considered as one substance according to them. So as they are counting Prithvi, Jala, Tej, Vayu, similarly they count Atma also as one substance. So their approach is more, we can say, world oriented. Now when we learn Mimamsa, I am discussing this in short. Mimamsa, as sir has explained, that Mimamsa more emphasizes on the Karma Kanda part, or Mimamsa is giving the rules about how to understand the Karma Kanda portion which is in the Brahmana or Aranyaka text of Veda. Now when we read those texts, there is description about different types of yaga, different types of rituals or karma kanda, which is explained in Veda. Now, Mimamsa talks about karma kanda and why that karma kanda is explained to attain or to obtain particular result. Jyotishtomo yajeta swarga kamaha. If we want swarga, then we have to perform Jyotishtom yag. If we want rain, we can perform Kariri yag. If we want wealth, then we can perform some other yag. Means what? Mimamsa or Vedic karma kanda part, that is explaining objects are there in the world, but how can we use those objects for obtaining some result for us. So the approach of Vaisheshik Darshan and approach of Mimamsa Darshan is slightly different. Vaisheshik Darshan is more interested in categorizing and classifying the things which are in the world, but Mimamsa Darshan is more interested in how to utilize them for the benefit of the self. So they both are discussing about the things which are in the world. When we try to learn Nyaya Darshan, so Nyaya Darshan is like the bridge between the self and the world. Nyaya Darshan talks about pramana. What are the different ways of getting knowledge? Now, when we are living in this world, now if you think about this symposium is going on. Now, I am speaking, you are sitting here in this auditorium. Now, the communication is going on. I am not alone here speaking, but I am trying to explain, I am trying to communicate with you. Means I am not alone, but I am also trying to perceive what are your reactions and whatever I am speaking, whether you are trying, you are getting or not. So Nyaya Darshan is more emphasizing on the perception part. What are the different ways of getting knowledge? So that can be Pratyaksha, that can be Anuman, that can be Shabda Praman or for Upaman Praman also. So Nyaya Darshan focuses on the knowledge process. Then when we come to Yoga Darshan, there is other discussion also in Nyaya, in Mimamsa. I am not saying that these are the only topics which are discussed in these systems, but these are the main topics. When we learn Yoga Darshan, then everything is related to Chitta. So when we learn Yoga Sutra, there are topics Chitta Prasadana, Chitta Vikshep, Chitta Vritti, Chitta Bhumi. So Yoga Darshan is emphasizing on the Chitta aspect. Now, when we say that we are human beings, so what exactly is I? When I consider myself as one person, what exactly comes in that I? So, there is mind also, there is Chitta also, there are senses, there is Atma. So, when we try to understand Yoga Darshan, it more emphasizes on the Chitta aspect. And when we learn Vedanta Darshan, then everything is on related to Atma aspect. So, Yoga also talks about Atma, Sankhya also talks about Atma, but the specialization of every darshan is different. So, in Vedanta, Atma is considered as the only reality. So, when Vedanta talks about Jagat also, then Vedanta tries to interpret Jagat on the basis of Atma. Vedanta says that Jagat is also Atma. Atma is all pervasive. So, as in Vaisheshik Darshan, Atma is considered as one Dravya, as one substance, because they are more emphasizing on the objects of the world. Whereas in Vedanta, Atma is more emphasized and they consider Jagat also as the manifestation of Atma. So approach of all these systems is different, and when we try to learn Sankhya Darshan, so as per whatever I understand, Sankhya is giving us like bird's eye view. Sankhya comprises of everything. Because the elements, 25 elements of Sankhya, it includes Purush also, means Atma is also there. It includes Antakaran also, so Buddhi, Ahankar and Mana. It talks about Jnanendriya, Karmendriya also. It talks about Tanmatra and Mahabhut also. Means it is talking about the material objects also, it is talking about Indriya, it talks about Chitta, it talks about Atma also. So Sankhya is giving us complete picture. So Sankhya is very important because it gives knowledge of all 25 elements, but the other systems are focusing on a particular subject. So like this we can understand, like when we go to doctor, so there are specialist doctors also and there is one general physician also. So Sankhya is like general physician which talks about all the elements, but other systems are more emphasizing on the special attributes like Atma or Chitta or Jagat. Now if we look at this picture, any one individual cannot be understood without the others. Only Atma cannot be understood without Jagat. Only Jagat cannot be understood without Chitta. So all these things are interconnected, and when we want to understand one element, we cannot understand without taking help of the other systems. So even if we try to understand Yoga Darshan, it cannot be understood without learning the other systems. So in our traditional learning, it is said that two things are very important, Vyakaran and Nyaya Darshan. So it is said that one has to learn Vyakaran and Nyaya, and then afterwards he can start the learning. And in the traditional learning, the sequence of learning these systems is also like that. First we have to learn Vaisheshik Darshan, then Mimamsa, then Nyaya, then Sankhya, Yoga and Vedanta. So we can say that the journey, even in the learning, it is from the extrovert world, and then we are gradually coming to the self. So Vedanta is considered as the crown of all the systems. Now if we come to yoga especially, I will talk about two different scopes. If we want to do some research in yoga, then we can make like two parts. One is the textual research and the other is the practical research. In simple words, if I say, so if we want to do some textual research in yoga, then I'll give you 2-3 examples where the research is possible. So in yoga, as we know that it is Astik Darshan, and as yoga is Astik Darshan, it accepts the validity of Veda. But if we try to read Yoga Sutra, Patanjali has not mentioned in any sutra that this particular concept is taken from XYZ Veda, or this particular concept is influenced by this mantra of Yajurveda or this mantra of Samaveda. So there is no mention of any mantra by Patanjali. And even if we read the commentaries on Yoga Sutra, not only Patanjali, if we read Vyasabhashya also, in Vyasabhashya we find certain references, but Vyasa quotes the sentences of Shashti Tantra, which is the Sankhya text. There are Purana verses, there are some mantras from the Upanishad, but in the whole Vyasabhashya we find only 3-4 references. There are not more than that. So if we try to understand why yoga is Astik Darshan, why it can be considered as Astik Darshan, and what exactly is the influence of Veda on yoga, then that is also very big. We can say there is scope for research in this area, because nobody has studied yoga in that way. If we take one concept like Kriya Yoga, and if we try to find out that Patanjali has explained Kriya Yoga, but is there any source in Vedic literature from where the concept of Kriya Yoga has been developed? Or Patanjali talks about Bhava Pratyayo Videha Prakriti Layanam. So he mentions about two types of yogis, but what is Videha, what is Prakriti Laya, and is there any reference in Upanishad or in Veda where these concepts are explained? So Patanjali has not explained any mantra, or he has not referred to any mantra in the Yoga Sutra. And when we read Upanishads, then most of the times Upanishads are interpreted on the Advaita Vedanta line. If you read Shankaracharya's Bhashya, if you read other commentaries, so they are interpreted from Advaita Vedanta perspective, or Dvaita or Vishishta Advaita. Means the interpretation of Upanishads has been done on the Vedanta line, but interpretation of Upanishads has not been done on the yoga line. So if we try to understand the Upanishads from the yoga perspective, is it possible? We have to study on that subject. So there is a lot of scope to do research. If we take some mantra from Ishavasya Upanishad or Kenopanishad, now the concept of Brahman is there in all the Upanishads, and as we know that in Advaita Vedanta, Brahman is considered as the one reality. But is it possible that the mantras of Ishavasya Upanishad can be understood on the line of yoga philosophy? So there can be research in this field. So we can study that the principles in Veda or principles in Upanishad, or even from Puranas also, many concepts are taken in Yoga Darshan. Now I can show you just 2-3 examples where we can relate the concepts of yoga philosophy and even in the Veda or in Purana or in Upanishads. Like these are two mantras which are taken from the Shiva Sankalpa Sukta of Shukla Yajurveda. So in that Sukta, the concept of mind is explained, how the activities of mind happen, that is also explained. Other concept which is there in yoga about prana and nadis. Now we all know that there are pancha pran, and this is very popular concept in yoga, prana, apan, vyan, udan, saman. But if we ask anyone that from where this concept is taken, why there are only 5 pran and why not more than that, or from where the names of pranas are taken, so many people don't know that. So in the Upanishads there are references, or in the other Vedic literature also there are references. So this I am I have given one paragraph from the Prashnopanishad where the names of 5 pran are mentioned and even their location and their activities are mentioned. So we can say that these concepts which are there in yoga are taken from the Upanishad. So there is influence. So in Yoga Sutra there is mentioned Samana Jayad Jvalanam, Udana Jayad Jalapanka Kantakadishu Asangaha Utkrantischa. So the siddhis which are mentioned by Patanjali, they are also mentioned in the Prashnopanishad. So there is correlation of these two things. Even we can say that the concepts of Yoga Sutra are also influenced by Mahabharata. Now if we see the time period, previously I didn't talk about that, but Yajurveda, according to modern scholars, the time of Yajurveda is 1200 BC to 1000 BC, means the Yoga Sutras are written approximately in the 2nd century BC according to modern scholars. But the period of Yajurveda or period of Prashnopanishad or period of Mahabharata is before Yoga Sutra. So there is lot of scope to claim that these concepts must have been developed from the literature which was earlier there. So as in Bhagavad Gita we all know, in Yoga Sutra we know that Abhyasa Vairagya Abhyam Tannirodha. So Chitta Vrittis can be restrained by 2 things, Abhyasa and Vairagya. But why only 2? Why Patanjali is not giving list of few more practices? So maybe the reference comes from Mahabharata. Now this is from Bhagavad Gita and we know that Bhagavad Gita is part of Mahabharata. So Patanjali accepts that whatever I am explaining in Yoga Sutra is not something new, but I have taken this from the previous tradition which is already there. So the first sutra, Atha Yoga Anushasanam. So Anu is to follow. So Patanjali says that I am not writing something new, but I am following the tradition which was already there. So in Mahabharata it is mentioned that before Patanjali, the tradition started from Hiranyagarbha. So the name is mentioned and even in Bhagavad Gita it is mentioned. Now there can be another field of research in yoga about the unpublished text on yoga. Now approximately I may say that in this hall there may be 200 or 300 people, and if we all decide to make a list of yoga text, Yoga Sutra, Vyas Bhashya, commentaries, Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Gheranda Samhita, if we all work together, I think that the list will not be more than 50 books. If all of us will try to make a list, then it is not beyond 50 books. But in the history, if we try to find out are there many more books on yoga, and if we try to understand the complete yoga perspective, then there are many manuscripts which are not yet published, and Kaivalya Dham has published one catalog in which they mention that there are 2874 manuscripts and there are 837 titles. Means our list is only 50. If we count all the books on yoga, it will go only up to 50 books. But in reality there are, means according to the records, there are 837 books. That means other books are not published. So if we want to understand the yoga tradition with only 50 books, is it possible to know the yoga completely? Then we have to say that no, because there are many other books which are not yet published. Now I am just showing you 2 manuscripts. The first one, and for that if we want to do this literary research, then we have to understand Sanskrit language by default. At the same time we have to know other scripts also, because only Devanagari is not the script where Sanskrit texts are written, but according to regional scripts also, the second one is in the Sharada script. So the language is Sanskrit but the script is different. So if we want to understand, or if we want to print the books which are not yet published, then we have to know other scripts also. Now this was related to the textual research. If I come to the practical research, so one very important thing that we have to understand, that the things or the practices of yoga which are related to physical things, then they can be measured. Like if we try to find out that what are the effects of Bhujangasana, what are the effects of Sarvangasana, then they can be measured. But the things which are not physical, how can we measure the results of them? Because we don't have any tools about them. If we try to measure that how much there is ekagrata of one person, is there any measurement, is there any tool which can measure how much chitta has become ekagra? So there is no tool. So there is problem in the non-physical things to measure. How are we going to measure that? Now there is one more thing in yoga, we can say that, which is ignored. and that is the siddhis in yoga. So there is a lot of research required about siddhis, but most of the modern researchers, they are not very much interested in doing research in siddhis because they consider that it is like a superstition. I give you one example about one scholar, N.G. Kulkarni, in his words, what he has written. It is little surprising that a man of Patanjali's calm and analytical intellect suddenly allows what appears like a scene from the Arabian Nights to be enacted on his bare, austere spiritual landscape. This is how one feels when one reads about the power of making oneself invisible, walking on water, traveling through the sky without an aeroplane, and entering the bodies of others, making oneself indestructible, etc. Now, whenever we read about the siddhis, Patanjali has mentioned the cause and effect relationship, that if you do sanyam on this particular thing, this will be the siddhi. But he has not explained the procedure or the scientific thing, that how it will lead to that. He has explained the cause and effect relationship, that this practice will lead to this result. But how does it happen? He has not explained, because the book is in the sutra form and sutra will be in the concise form. So the explanation is not given. So there is a lot of scope for research in the field of siddhis. I am not saying that all these siddhis can be measured or can scientifically be evaluated on the machinery or the tools, but most of them, and there can be possibility of research in that field also. We can say that all these siddhis, they can have interdisciplinary research in psychology or linguistics, etc. I'll give you just one example, that in siddhis there is one sutra, sopakramam nirupakramam karma tat sanyamat aparanta jnanam arishtebhyo va. I'm telling you where there is scope for research. Patanjali says that one can know his or others' death if he observes arishta. So arishta are the signs which indicate the death. Now Patanjali has not explained that which are the signs that indicate the death of person, but when we come across the other literature in Purana, as sir said that Puranas are also very important. So in Purana there is the whole list. So when the person is going to die, before 1 year, all these signs can be observed. So what happens before 1 year? What happens before 11 months? So there are different signs of death which are mentioned in the Purana literature, and this topic comes in Ayurveda also. So in Ayurveda, Charak and Sushrut, they explain that doctor has to understand whether the patient will recover or the patient will not recover. So he has to understand what are the signs on his body. So these are some of these signs. What happens before 1 year, 11 months or 2-3 months, or these signs. If these signs are seen, then the person will die within 1 week. So some of these signs are mentioned here, but as there is less time, I am not reading all of them. Now we can maintain record, and in the Western world they have habit of making record that now if you go to some websites, the records have been kept that when the patients are about to die, what are their experiences. So this list can be given to patients, and they may make tick mark that this sign is seen, this sign is not seen. So on the basis of records, we can prove that whether whatever is said by Patanjali, whether these arishtas or these signs which are indicating death are really applicable or not. So for that, data has been kept, and on the basis of data collection, we can prove, we can do research that this is valid or this is not valid, whatever. There are 3 sutras in the Vibhuti part. Bhuvana Jnanam Surya Sanyamat, Chandre Tara Vyuha Jnanam, Dhruve Tadgati Jnanam. Patanjali says that by having Sanyama on Surya, one can get knowledge of Bhuvana, knowledge of universe. By having Sanyama on Chandra, yogi can get the knowledge of the structure of the asterisms or of nakshatra. And Dhruve Tadgati Jnanam, if yogi meditates on Dhruva, the pole star, then he can have knowledge of the speed or the motion of all the planets. Now there are no proofs whether this will happen or not, because we cannot measure whether the yogi is having dharana, dhyan, samadhi or not. There are no instruments, but there is scope of anuman. As sir said that anuman is also one praman. Now this is one paragraph from Taittiriya Samhita, and the period of Taittiriya Samhita is approximately 1000 BCE. Now in that Taittiriya Samhita, there is mention of 27 nakshatras. Kritika, Rohini, Mruga, Ardra, Punarvasu. And as we know that at that time there were no instruments, there were no means to measure or to have direct perception of all the stars and planets, everything. So we can say that then how all these yogis or all these ancestors, they got the knowledge of all the nakshatras, and they have mentioned, and even there are books on Jyotish, on in the astrology, to measure the speed of the planets or their motions, and all these things are mentioned. So there is no instrument, there was no instrument at that time. So we can say that with the help of Anuman Praman we can infer that these things are possible. So in yoga, if we want to do some research, then there are many challenges, that many things, the practices and the results are mentioned, cause and effect relationship is mentioned, but the procedure is not mentioned, or there are no tools to measure samadhi or ekagrata or klesha. Then ekagrata of different individuals can be different also, because we are meditating on different objects, and there cannot be any common parameter which can be applicable for everyone. And even there are some situational factors or individual factors which are involved in the process of meditation or such subtle things. So in yoga there are some challenges also. And so in yoga, in the textual research also and in the practical research also, there are many fields where the scholars have not done the research yet, so they are open for all. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing the scope, both practical and theoretical, in yoga research. Now I request the members from the Yogas Club to give away the memento as a gratitude.